All right, hello and welcome. So, you're gearing up for your HRMT 350 final exam? You've landed in exactly the right spot. Think of this as your personal, focused guide to really mastering the key concepts in compensation and benefits. We've got a good bit to cover, so let's just dive right in.
I totally get it. You're staring down these chapters on pay structures, benefits, executive comp, and it just feels like a mountain of information. The pressure's on, and honestly, the hardest part is just figuring out where to even start, right? What's really important?
Well, don't you worry. We're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to take this prep guide and turn it into a clear, straightforward masterclass. We're going to focus on the 3 core areas that you absolutely, positively have to know to do well on this exam.
So here's our game plan. First up, we're going to lay the foundation with the architecture of pay. After that, we'll zoom out to look at the total rewards package. Then we'll get into some special compensation cases, and to wrap it all up, we'll land on that one big idea you need to walk away with.
Okay, part 1, the architecture of pay. You really have to think of this as the bedrock. I mean, everything else we're going to talk about in compensation management is built right on top of a solid, well-thought-out pay structure.
And building that structure? It's a pretty logical 4-step process. Step 1, job analysis, is all about figuring out what people are actually doing in their roles. Then, job evaluation steps in to determine how valuable those jobs are relative to each other. Next, you do your market pricing. You got to look outside and see what other companies are paying. And finally, with all that info, you can design your pay grades and ranges. See? It's a clear path from inside the company to the outside world.
Let's drill down on that second step, job evaluation, because this is so critical for internal fairness. This isn't just about someone's opinion. It's a systematic process to figure out which jobs contribute more to the organization's goals. You use methods like a point factor system to assign scores for things like skills and responsibility. This is really the engine that ensures you're paying people consistently and equitably inside your own walls.
So, how do you know if a specific person is paid competitively within that structure you've built? That's where the compa ratio comes in handy. It's a super simple formula. You just take the employee's salary and divide it by the midpoint of their pay grade. So, for example, if an employee is making $18,000 and the midpoint is $20,000, their compa ratio is 90. That number, 90, tells you in an instant that they're being paid below the market rate for their job. It's a powerful little metric.
Now, sometimes pay can get a little out of whack with the structure, and that leads to 2 key problems you need to know. A red circle rate means an employee is paid above the maximum for their grade. To fix that, you might freeze their pay for a while. The opposite is a green circle rate, and this one's a big deal. It means someone is paid below the minimum. That's a huge fairness issue, and it has to be fixed by raising their salary to at least the minimum for that grade.
Companies can also set up their pay structures in a couple of different ways. You've got the traditional approach with lots of narrow pay grades. This creates a really clear step-by-step career ladder, but it doesn't give managers much wiggle room. Then there's broad banding. This approach basically squashes all those grades into just a few wide bands. This gives managers a ton of flexibility, and it's perfect for flatter organizations where people make a lot of lateral moves.
All right, let's move on to our second big section. Because, let's be real, a paycheck is only the beginning. To really attract and keep the best talent, smart companies think about the entire total rewards package. It's about looking way beyond just the salary.
And benefits are a huge piece of that puzzle. They really fall into 2 buckets. First, you have the legally required stuff, the things a company has to offer by law, like basic health insurance. But where companies really set themselves apart is with discretionary benefits. These are the voluntary extras, the retirement plans, the wellness programs, the generous time off, that they use as a secret weapon to attract and retain the very best people.
Now, when it comes to retirement plans, one of the most interesting things is who's carrying the financial risk. In a defined benefit, or DB plan, the company promises you a specific payout when you retire. That means they bear all the risk of the investments. In a defined contribution, or DC plan, the company puts in a set amount, but your final nest egg depends entirely on how the market performs. In that case, you, the employee, bear all the risk. That is a massive, massive difference.
Health insurance has its own key models, too. You have an HMO, which usually has a lower monthly premium, but it's pretty restrictive. You need a primary doctor to be your gatekeeper, and you have to stay inside their network of doctors. Then you have a PPO, which costs more but gives you a ton of flexibility. You can see specialists whenever you want and even go outside the network. It's that classic trade-off, cost versus choice.
So with all these different pieces, salary, bonus, benefits, how does an employee actually see what their compensation is worth? Well, that's the whole point of a total reward statement. It's this fantastic personalized document that puts a real dollar value on everything. Your salary, your bonus, what the company pays for your health insurance, their retirement match, all of it. It makes all that invisible value totally visible, and believe me, that is a powerful tool for keeping people happy and engaged.
Okay, let's get into our final content section. You know, not everyone in a company is a standard full-time employee. So let's look at two special cases at the opposite ends of the spectrum: executives at the very top and the flexible temporary workforce. Executive pay is, well, it's complicated. It's a whole package designed to attract and motivate top leaders. Of course, there's a base salary, but then you have short-term bonuses tied to yearly performance, and crucially, long-term incentives, like stock options, that are meant to align the executive's goals with the shareholders. Throw in some perks, like housing allowances and things like deferred compensation, and you start to see the whole picture.
And because it's so complex, it brings up this massive ethical question. Is the way we're paying our top leaders actually encouraging them to build real, sustainable, long-term value for the company? Or are we just tempting them to chase short-term numbers, maybe even at the cost of the company's future? It's a really critical question to think about for the exam.
Now let's flip to the other side of the coin, the flexible workforce. Here, compensation and benefits are all over the place. For example, part-time and temporary workers, they're usually paid by the hour with very few, if any, benefits. Leased employees actually get their benefits from the staffing agency, not the company where they're working. And then you have independent contractors who are legally self-employed, which means they get zero employer benefits. It's a whole different world for each type of worker. So, we've built the architecture of pay, we've unwrapped the total rewards package, and we've looked at those special cases. Now it's time to pull it all together for your final, big-picture takeaway, the thing you absolutely need to remember.
So here it is, the most crucial point of all. Compensation is not just an expense. It is not just about writing checks. You have to think of it as a strategic system. Every single piece of it, the pay grades, the bonuses, the benefits, every single thing is a tool that's being used to attract the right people, to motivate the right kind of work, and ultimately to push the entire organization's strategy forward. And that leaves you with the ultimate question to frame all of your thinking for this exam. Is compensation just a line on a budget, a simple cost of doing business? Or, when it's designed with care and strategy, is it actually the single most powerful lever an organization has to shape its culture and drive its performance? Let that one sink in. Now go ace that exam. Good luck.